Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick at Qdabra. I have Kirby Alphafar with me. We're looking forward to presenting to you today. We're just having a few minor connectivity issues with Kirby's connection from Manila or thereabouts. So bear with us. We're going to start the webinar in about 5 minutes. Thanks for coming. Talk to you soon. Actually, one more quick check. If you can hear me, please raise your hand. We'll do a quick verification. Kirby and I just verified. Thanks, Dean. And thanks for being here. I think you're the first one. Devin's here. Great, Devin. Thanks. Great to have you again. And okay, it sounds like we have okay audio. That's wonderful news. Hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. We will get started here in about 4 minutes. Thank you. Well, good morning again, everyone. This is Patrick Halstead at Qdabra, and today I'm really happy to say once again that Kirby Alphafar is doing our webinar, or we're going to try to do it. We've got some connection issues with her connection from the Philippines, and it may be really slow. Her audio seems fine, but I'm worried about the demo. So what we're going to do is we're going to go slow on the slides, and we're going to talk about this new technique. I want to thank everyone for joining, and I want to thank especially Kirby for putting this new technique together. Kirby?
Thanks, Patrick. So can you hear me okay?
Kirby, do you have audio?
Yes, I have audio. Can you hear me?
We did test audio earlier. Yeah, we had audio, but I don't hear her now.
Hello?
We'll give it another few seconds here. Kirby, you there?
Yep, I'm here, Patrick. I think everyone can hear me except except you. Okay.
It says she's talking, but I can't hear her. So let's see. Can anybody else hear her? Let's see. Raise your hand if you can hear Kirby. Okay, so This must be me. Great. Well, Kirby, you're off and running, so I'm just going to shut up.
Okay. So, okay, let me just move this slide. Okay, so for today's webinar, I'm going to show you how you can automate the creation of list and list column using Microsoft Flow, and also show you how you can call the SharePoint REST API using Flow. So the first thing I'd like to discuss is about Microsoft Flow. So Microsoft Flow is a cloud-based software that allows creation and automation of tasks across multiple applications and services without the help from the developers. So the basic concept in Flow is that the user specifies what action should take place when a specific event occurs. So as you can see here, these are the most popular services in Flow. So the ones that you can integrate in your workflow to automate and accomplish a task. So they also call them connectors. So here are some of the actions that you can do with Flow. So the first is collect data. So say, for example, you want to send your Gmail attachments to OneDrive or copy SharePoint list items to an Excel file. For notifications, say, for example, you want to be notified when your boss emailed you. And lastly, you can also use Flow for sending emails. So in Qdabra, we normally use Flow to send email notifications. For example, if a new expense report is submitted by one of our resources, Flow will then be triggered since a new item is created in the expense report library, and a new email will be sent to the resources manager to review the report. So those are just some of the actions that you can accomplish or automate with Flow. So I'm now going to proceed with the demo. So one of the most popular connectors in Flow is SharePoint. So today I'm going to show you how to leverage Flow to automate the creation of a SharePoint list. So let's say, for example, you want to automate the creation of list for each of your vendors. So let's go ahead and create a SharePoint list called vendors, where we can store all the vendors that you have. So let's create now a list. I have here our SharePoint site called the demo, and let's create the list. My internet connection is a bit slow right now, so please bear with me. So the goal for this is that whenever the user creates an entry in this list, it will trigger the flow and create a list for that specific vendor. So let's proceed to renaming this column and replace it with vendor name. Let's click the title. Change this to vendor name and click OK. And we're also going to add a new column in the vendors list that will show us the status of our flow. So let's name this new column flow status. Flow status, and let's give it a default value go. So we want this column to serve as an indicator if our flow is successful or not. So later in flow, we're going to configure it to update this column once the flow ran successfully for each vendor. So now let's see let's navigate to flow and create a new one. So every flow starts with a trigger. So let's go ahead and pick one SharePoint trigger. Let's search for SharePoint. And let's select when an item is created. Trigger, let's select our site address, which is the demo site. Okay, and select also the new list that we just created, the vendors. And the next step would be to select a SharePoint action. So let's see the available actions for SharePoint in Flow. Okay, let's wait for a few seconds here. Still loading. As you can see here, there are a lot of SharePoint actions such as get items, create item, copy file, but there is no specific action for creating a list. So what we'll do is use the send an HTTP request to SharePoint action, which will make use of the SharePoint REST API. So if you're not familiar with SharePoint REST API, it's okay. I'm also still learning this area as well. But basically what this action will do is it will give us the ability to interact with SharePoint objects such as SharePoint lists, fields, and even SharePoint groups. So this action comes in handy, particularly when you need to work with lists or libraries and list items or documents, because not all actions are available yet for the SharePoint connector in Flow. So what we'll do now is again select the site, demo site, and for the method we're going to use post, since we're going to create a new SharePoint object, which is the list. And for the URI, this URI will allow us to specify the path or location of the resource that we want to manipulate. So in this case, the SharePoint list. So to know the URI for the list, we have here a reference in the Microsoft Docs site where it shows us the URI that we can use. So here is the URI. Let's copy this one, starting from the _API/web/lists. So, okay, now that we have the URI, we're going to specify the headers. So I have here a sample header that we can use. Okay, so this is the standard header that we use when sending a request to SharePoint. So we're basically trying to tell SharePoint that the type of our request is in JSON format and that we expect the response to be in JSON format as well. So for the body, here I have a sample again. Okay, so we're specifying the metadata with SharePoint list type. So the body contains the necessary details to create the site. So we have here the SharePoint list type. So for the sp.list, we have this required properties in order to create a list using REST. So how are you going to know what properties to use? So we have here again another reference in the Microsoft Docs site where it lists all the properties that you can use. So here we have the base template. If you want to enable the content types, the description, and so on. So here we specified base template to have 100, to have the value 100. So this pertains to the custom list if we want to create a custom list. So we also have here a reference for that. So as you can see here, these are the values that you can use for the base template. The base template property. So if we want to change that to be a document library, we can use the value 101. So, but for this example, we're just going to use 100 for the generic list or for the custom list, for creating the custom list. And then we also have the description here, sample description. And for the title, we're going to use the one that we will specify in the vendors list. So we will search for the vendor name here. As you can see, you can select the field from the list that we just created, and we will specify that as the title for the list. And now let's save this one and let's create a new, okay, it's saving now. Okay, so let's create a new step that will update the flow status value that we just update item. Let's search for the SharePoint action called update item, which will update that specific field in our list. Okay, so here it is. And let's select the same site address, which is the demo. For the list name, the vendors, and for the ID, we're going to select the ID from the trigger, which is this one. Oops, sorry. And for the vendor name, we're going to select the vendor name as well of the trigger. And then for the flow status, we're just going to change or replace go with list created so that we know that the list has been successfully created for that specific vendor. So now it's saving, and let's test our flow. So I'll perform a trigger. Okay, so as you can see, flow is now waiting for us to create the trigger. And let's create a new entry here in our list. Okay, let's name it vendor 1 and click save. And then once our flow is successful, it will show us okay, it will show us this message. And as you can see here, the flow status was updated to list created, and all of the actions here ran successfully. So if we try to navigate to our site contents, we should now see a new list created with the name vendor 1. Okay, so as you can see, here's our new list that was created using Flow. So now, what if we want to add a column for that list? So let's try to create another step. We're going to use the same action, which is the send an HTTP request to Sharepoint. And okay, and we'll specify again the site, our demo site. So in this case, we're going to create now the column instead of a list. But so since we're creating again, we're going to use the same method, which is post. And for this, we have a new URI to use, which is API web lists / get by title / fields. So this is the way to manipulate the fields in our list. So we'll specify the title of our list here. So the title of our list is the vendor name. So let's get that. And for the headers, we're just going to use the same headers here as above. And for the body, we're going to use the sp.field type. So here we will specify the title for the column as well as the field type, which has the value 2. So as you can see here, I have another reference for the list of all the field types available that you can use. So here we can also, so if we want a field type choice, we can use the value 6, or for the daytime, we can use 4. So for this example, we'll just use number 2 since we're going to create a text field. So you can see here the value of that is 2. So once that's done, we're going to create another step to update the flow status and make it and to make the value to and to replace the value with let's say column created. Okay, for the ID, we're just going to use the same ID here, and for the vendor name, and so that should be it. So let's save again and create a trigger. Oh, by the way, for the properties for the SP field, you can also search for that in the Microsoft Docs. So here we have a bunch of properties that you can use for that specific object. You can specify if it's hidden, if it should be hidden. You can also specify the internal name for that column, and if you want it to be read-only, and so on. So yeah, let's proceed now with testing our flow. Okay, so again, let's create a new entry here, vendor 2. Okay, so let's wait until the flow status is updated. Okay, so the list is created, but not sure why it didn't create the column. Let's just wait for a few seconds here. The flow is still running. Okay, let's just check whether a new list has been created for the vendor 2. Okay, so as you can see, our vendor 2 list has been created using flow, and I'm not sure if you'll see the column here because okay, it didn't run successfully. So let's check the issue here. Okay, um, I think the issue here is that the title is not specified. So let's try to edit again our flow and specify that field name. Okay, for the field name, let's try products. And okay, save that and test again. Okay, let's create a new entry here, vendor 3. Okay, our flow is now running, and let's just wait for a few seconds. Okay, so finally, so our flow ran successfully, and if we try to check again our site contents, we should be able to see the vendor 3 list here with the product or products field. Okay, there it is. And if we click on that, let's try to see if the column is here. So right now you're not seeing the column since this is your current view, and Flow doesn't want to mess with your view. So let's go to the edit view and select and see if the product, okay, products field is here. Okay, so let's hit OK and show that to in our list. Okay, so yeah, so that's it for the demo. I showed you how to use this action to create the SharePoint list as well as the SharePoint column. And you can also use this specific action, the send an HTTP request to SharePoint to create groups, to create SharePoint groups, and also to assign permissions to those groups and many more. So yeah. Patrick?
So yeah, do I have audio now?
Yeah.
Kirby, great job. So I know it's been challenging with the connection on my side, and I don't know if the screen has been lagging for people, but it has been for me. And I just had one quick question for you. It looked when you ran it, and it's pretty awesome that you can actually do all these things with HTTP requests. I guess there's two questions. One is that what kind of a license is required for the HTTP stuff? I know that this came up actually about a month ago in the BizApp Summit with Microsoft, and I think they mentioned that for Power Apps, if you're doing HTTP requests, you needed to have a license like the not the basic license, but the more advanced one, the $45 a month kind of deal versus the $7. And for Flow though, it's just usage, right? There's no additional licensing required for HTTP requests, right?
Yeah, I think this is still available in the free plan, so you can use it without purchasing any license.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to I guess work around the issue with Power Apps licensing with HTTP requests. So the second question I have is, the HTTP stuff, it's so powerful, right? Because you can do all kinds of things with REST, and I mean, because SharePoint is completely accessible from the REST API, and you mentioned permissions, which I think is a really cool next webinar maybe. I mean, because permissions is a big thing, especially when you have restricted documents, you want to submit them, remove the permissions, right? And then just add permissions back for the person who submitted it and maybe the admins. And that's actually a scenario that we've been talking about for one of our customers recently. So I'm kind of very curious about that. But when it failed for you, the fail message was bad gateway, but it wasn't a gateway issue, right? It was just the name of the
it was
the list. What was
I didn't add the name or the title for the column, so that's the issue earlier.
I see. So is it always like that with Flow? Because you've been doing a lot of flows now. When there is an error, is it always as obtuse as that? Is hard to understand?
No, Flow will show you the detailed error here when you click on the. Actually, let's try to click on the error earlier.
Yeah. So and while Kirby's doing that, if others have questions, please submit them. We'd love to hear your comments, your feedback, and also any questions you have. And you can do that all through that little question area. Thanks for being with us today, in spite of my connection issues, and look forward to hearing your questions in a second here. Yes, if you drill down on that, you're saying that the main message is kind of misleading, right? It says default gateway problem.
Yeah.
But
we can try.
You can actually get more detail.
Yeah. It's still loading. I think it's here. Okay, yeah. So the message is cannot add a field without a display name. So that's the specific error here.
Well, that's great. So you can actually drill down to figure it out, and that bad gateway, you can just ignore that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks again, Chris. It's really awesome. Can you go back to the slides real quick and show them the references? And then while we're doing that, we'll just wait for questions here. It looks like do we have any new questions? I don't think we have any new questions. We have the greetings from about 30 minutes ago. And so I guess, yeah, do you want to describe this slide and maybe the next slide as well? Or maybe I'll talk to it. So you've got some links in here for the, you know, for you to, we'll send out the deck after later today. And these are links to show how to do what you did, right?
Yep. So these are the links that I showed you earlier in the Microsoft Docs, where you can see the list of the object properties for the sp.list field and so on. Yeah.
Great. And let's just do one quick shout out then to Forms Viewer. We did an update this morning for Forms Viewer. We had a breaking update from Chrome. So Chrome and Firefox both released new versions of their browser, and this was in the last week or so. I think version 74 or 75 of Chrome had a breaking change for rich text boxes. And Jimmy was on top of it. He saw the issue coming in, and we quickly published out a hot fix for this issue. It was an issue with the format of the, well, we'll send out more details later, but it wasn't the Forms Viewer issues per se. It was Forms Viewer was using an older way of doing it that they deprecated a while ago, I guess, and they stopped supporting it with version 74 or 75. Anyway, that should be fixed now. So if you have any issues at all with your Forms Viewer forms, do let us know. We're curious to see if there's any fallout today. We did do some extensive testing this morning on it, and we have not deployed to Europe yet. We will do that later today, probably tonight. And once again, Forms Viewer is our option, our alternate option to you. You know, Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, those are all part of the Power Platform, and Qdabra is a certified Microsoft partner, one of a couple dozen for the Power Platform. We've done a lot of solutions, and we continue to work hard to maintain that partnership with Microsoft. And but if you've got forms and you don't want to spend the effort or the cost to move them, or nor if you want to actually pay for the licensing, Forms Viewer is a great option to keep that investment alive. And we also have a lot of new features that we've extended Forms with to allow you to use the newest web services to do SMS text authentication, face recognition. We're going to be talking about the assistant later today or later this year, and show you how to use your voice to fill out a form quickly in an approval situation. So we've got a lot of stuff going on there. If you need any help, let us know. And I want to thank everyone again, and especially Kirby, for doing this wonderful webinar. You're a total pro now, and sorry about my connection issues, but thanks again. Awesome job.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
Yeah.